Welcome to Cardinal Perspectives, a series featuring in-depth conversations with alumni, students, faculty, staff, and the extended family and community of the Catholic University of America. My name is Dennis Strack, Director of Diocesan Engagement at Catholic University, and I'm pleased to introduce this episode of Cardinal Perspectives featuring Brian Corbin. Brian Corbin received his Bachelor of Arts degree from Catholic University in 1984 and is now the Executive Vice President of Member Services at Catholic Charities USA. With more than 27 years of diocesan leadership in Youngstown, Ohio, and 10 years at Catholic Charities, he has advanced Catholic social ministry in roles ranging from refugee services to pro-life advocacy. Brian has served on numerous boards, including as the chair of the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops' National Advocacy Council and the Secretary of the International Catholic Migration Commission. He teaches ethics and Catholic social doctrine at Walsh University and holds a doctorate in organizational leadership with ongoing PhD studies in political economy at MIT. He is a published scholar and a Knight of the Holy Sepulchre. This conversation is facilitated by Kirsten Evans, Associate Vice President for Diocesan Relations and International Engagement at Catholic University. Let's get started.
Wonderful to be here today. And I'm Kirsten Evans. As you know, I'm one of the Associate Vice Presidents at Catholic University of America. And it is an absolute pleasure and joy for me to be sitting here today with Brian Corbin, alum of our university. Brian finished his Bachelor of Arts in
philosophy
and
political science
in 1984.
Yes,
Am I right?
I'm very young.
And yep, just like me.
There we go.
And you are now the Executive Vice President of Member Services at Catholic Charities USA, which is a very valued partner of the university. So I know you're a very active alum, and you have given a lot back to the university throughout the years. We are always thrilled to have you on campus and appreciate so much the time and attention that you've given to the university. So thank you so much for sitting down with us.
Oh my goodness, my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me. I'm very honored and gratitude. Thank you.
Well, let me start with that.
Yeah.
Tell me, if you don't mind me asking,
Sure.
Brian, how did you end up at Catholic University?
Yeah, so I have to go back to 1979. So I was applying that year to get into the class of 1980, right? Or to get into school for my freshman year in 1980. So I was looking around. I was pretty much, I had gone to a public school. I was very active in Catholic youth ministry in the state of Maine, Diocese of Portland, Maine. A little footnote, I had been appointed by the Bishop of Portland, Maine, to serve on the board of directors of Catholic Charities of Maine when I was
Really?
16 years old.
Wow.
So I was they had a youth representative. This isn't a youth board. This wasn't an advisory group. I was a young person that the bishop appointed every 2 years for the junior, senior year of a student's life to serve representing the voice of youth on the corporate board of Catholic Charities, which
Wow.
kind of gets to the story of why I went to Catholic U ultimately. So I started that way, and honest to God, at 17, 18 years old, I have no idea what I'm doing in governance, but it was a formative moment because it was a first glimpse. I was a very active person in church and lector. I was a musician. But seeing the work of Catholic Charities in Maine at 17 years old at a corporate level, I said, wow, this is what the church, this is an important part of the church. So at that point, I started applying for bachelor's degrees. I applied to your typical state university, University of Maine, where my mom and my brother went and got all, but there were two choices. One was University of Notre Dame and one was Catholic University of America. I got accepted at both. As I was planning my next step, the president of Colby College in Waterville, Maine, was a good friend of my mom's. His wife worked with my mother. And he came to dinner one night to help me do some due diligence. And he said, Brian, what do you really want to study? And I said, well, I really want to bring together justice and our faith because of this experience in Catholic Charities. And he said, Brian, I know Notre Dame's decent and good, but you're going to be at the Catholic University of America in Washington, D.C. Number one, think about that. Number two, at that time, there were more graduate students than undergraduate students at Catholic University. He said, just think of the possibilities of moving quickly through higher level education. And because there are so many graduate students, you might have an opportunity to touch deeper subjects with professors.
Oh, wow. Insightful.
That to me was the end. So I was at Catholic University, here I come. So in 1980, started in the class of 1980, and it was one of the best decisions I ever made, in my opinion. It was a great location because I was in the School of Philosophy, so I knew I wanted to study philosophy. But as you could well imagine, your parents saying, so what are you going to do with a degree in philosophy? And so I took my first international security class. It was a weapons control class.
Oh, interesting.
In the School of Politics, in the Department of Politics. And I fell in love with this professor in a platonic sense of academic work, Dr. Joan Barth Urban, who was a Soviet expert. And it just triggered something in me. So I became her research assistant, and so I combined the School of Philosophy Studies with international security.
Oh, wow.
And then I finished at that point in philosophy school, we had to write a thesis. Mm-hmm. And so I did and at that very moment, 1983, 1984, the U.S. Bishops' Conference was publishing their very famous document on peace, their economic pastoral on peace. And it was during the MX missile debate and war and the use of tactical nuclear weapons in a European theater. And so because I was studying Soviet politics with Dr. Urban and had these incredible philosophy classes and moral philosophy and social philosophy in the School of Philosophy, my thesis was on the application of Thomas Aquinas's just war theory to the current debate on the MX missile.
Oh, wow.
That got me into MIT grad school with a full scholarship to study for my doctorate in international security and economics. So because of that thesis, I was told by people at MIT that accepted me for the doctoral work, like, that is incredible that we have a person who actually knows tactical weapons, weapon systems, but also had this incredible DC experience on public policy, but also the ability to use moral thinking. So that, to me, I owe my whole trajectory from that point on was because of Catholic University. So that was a great opportunity for me.
That is so amazing. We hear that a lot among alumni and graduates who say that when they arrive to the workplace, one of the things that sometimes they're surprised by it, but one of the things that they find over and over and over again that distinguishes them is the ability to think critically and to think within ethical and philosophical frameworks that a lot of times their colleagues who might have incredible technical backgrounds or in technical education didn't necessarily receive. And still today, all of our undergraduates are required to take a certain number of philosophy and theology classes, right, for that reason.
Sure.
So I was a philosophy major also.
Oh, yeah, thank God.
So
you do have practical things. Yeah. We can be practical.
So for all of us people that say that...
So
that
Dad, Mom, I was practical. Listen,
right.
See?
Well, that's fantastic. Okay, so you started out. So how did you would you mind telling us a little bit about the journey from Catholic Charities as a youth on the youth board? Then you end up at Catholic University of America. You go on to MIT and to do your graduate and your doctoral degree at MIT. And what was the journey back to Catholic Charities?
Yeah, so in between that, so between 80 and 84, I had the opportunity to intern and work with a group of Jesuits that were on Otis Street, right up the street from Catholic U. It was called the Center of Concern. And Father Peter Henrio, Father Phil Land, Father Mike Schulteis, Jane Blewett, Maria O'Reilly, they were all doctors in various fields. And they were trying to bring together the intellectual tradition of the church and Catholic social teaching and applying it to modern politics and modern economic thinking. So I was Father Pete Henrio's intern for 3 years. Father Pete Henrio was a PhD at Harvard, actually did a lot of work in voting rights, and was an expert in thinking through reading the signs of the times and what was called doing social analysis.
Oh.
So I had a great formation. So again, remember, I'm bringing together philosophy, moral philosophy, and nuclear strategy, and they helped me from an outside perspective in real time think about how do you bring those two worlds together. So for a 20-year-old, I didn't have a clue. But by being an intern for that group of scholars who were part of the Jesuit, the Society of Jesus, and doing this work full time allowed me to kind of think through how do I make these things practical in public policy and in that work. So again, that picture allowed me to get to grad school to do a doctorate in political economy at MIT. But what happened after is, as I was finishing my doctoral work, I called this Father Peter again, who was a Jesuit at the Center of Concern. I said, okay, I'm ready. It's like, ready for what? I'm ready to find a job to teach. And he's like, what are you going to teach? You're 25. It's like, hey, I just got through this incredible program at MIT. It's like, yeah, you're 25. What are you going to teach? I said, these incredible books and stuff. And the scholar's like, no, I'm asking you, what are you going to teach? And I was like, what are you trying to tell me? It's like, I'm trying to tell you, get out there.
Right.
You've been in the academy too long already. Go do something. Remember, you were on the board of a Catholic Charities institution. And then he knew that Catholic Charities, he knew the bishop of Youngstown, Ohio, Bishop James W. Malone, PhD, Catholic University of America, and was the president of the U.S. bishops when they wrote this document on the Peace Pastoral. He was looking for a director of Catholic Charities. And so Father Peter connected me with Bishop James W. Malone. And the next thing you know, I was made the director of Catholic Charities in Youngstown, Ohio. And I started in 1987 and started to doing work in a highly impacted community that had been devastated by the decline and the collapse of the steel industry.
Right.
And this is the mixture between Appalachia and the Rust Belt. And it was a pretty hard place to be in the sense that people were fantastic, but it was an economic collapse. And so he wanted someone who kind of was probably an outsider and didn't know better and kind of young and naive to try things, like be innovative, try stuff, get out there. And you have you've had great knowledge, and so let's apply it. And that was how I got to Catholic Charities, by kind of happy mistakes that I don't think were that mistake. It was probably the Holy Spirit.
Divine providence.
Or just kind of, being at the right place, right time, but also...
Because you've never left.
Because I never left. So I was in Youngstown, Ohio as Director of Charities and the Executive Director of Health and Human Services for the Diocese of Youngstown for 27 years. And then from there, I had served on the National Board of Catholic Charities for 6 years. I was the National Secretary for 3. And there was a point in time where Father Larry Snyder, who was the president of Catholic Charities, said, Brian, I think it's time for you to do something else. And so he persuaded me to come to take this position.
Wow.
So that's how that's the whole movement. So, but for 27 years, I actually worked in a diocese and did health and human services, Catholic Charities, Catholic hospitals, our nursing homes, government relations, community development in the Diocese of Youngstown, Ohio.
Wow.
So
you talk a little bit about that Rust Belt, right, and the experience of the community that you encountered on arriving to Youngstown. We are, as you and I sit here today, recording this podcast, we're nearing the holiday season. We're coming up to Thanksgiving. Food security becomes I think, it's always an issue across communities throughout the United States. It becomes something that as a nation we spend more time thinking about around the Thanksgiving holiday season. Can you tell me a little bit about the work of Catholic Charities across the country, now from putting on your Catholic Charities USA hat, on the topic of food security and what Catholic Charities helps to do to provide food and other basic resources that are needed for underserved communities throughout the United States and oftentimes underseen and underrecognized and underserved.
Sure. So let me explain a little bit about Catholic Charities USA and the Catholic Charities model. So Catholic Charities USA, by the way, was founded on the steps of McMahon Hall on September 25th, 1910.
Oh, wow.
And so we have this great picture of that moment. And then in 2010, on September 25th, 2010, exactly 100 years later, we took another picture of all of us that were gathered at Catholic University of America to celebrate the 100th anniversary. So there's an incredible connection between Catholic Charities USA, and Catholic University of America. So that's a cool
Amazing.
factoid to begin with. But Catholic Charities USA is a membership organization composed of 168 diocesan Catholic Charities entities. So each diocese is organized a little differently. So we have, in that 168 dioceses, we have equivalent to about 750 separate corporations. And then within that, we are in 3,500 locations in all 50 states, including the 5 territories: Guam, American Samoa, U.S. Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, Washington, D.C., which is technically, as you know, a territory. So every single zip code in the United States has a responsible Catholic Charities.
Wow.
Because it's a diocese. We're organized by dioceses, as you well know how that works in church structures. It's a network of independent corporations, because almost 99% of all Catholic Charities agencies report directly to the bishop, and or the bishop's the chair of the board of that corporation. So we are the diocesan corporation of the bishop to do social services for the most part. Not everyone has every diocese has a little twist on that theme. Catholic Charities USA was founded for 3 purposes: to help build diocesan capacity, to professionalize social work, and I'm going to get back to that shortly.
Oh, yeah.
And third, to be the attorney for the poor, to translate everything we do in services to a public policy position, and to be their voice.
I love that phrase, the attorney for the poor.
And so our job in Catholic Charities USA is to focus on federal legislation. All local dioceses focus on state and local government relations. That's their job, which is fine. So getting back to your question, now that that's understood a little bit, every year we do an annual survey of the ministries that we do. We have 1,500 distinct ministries in those 168 organizations. So most of our agencies are multifaceted, service delivery, not just one thing. We just don't do one thing, from housing to food to counseling to adoption. So you can imagine all of that. What we have found in our annual surveys over the years is that about 54% of a person coming and knocking on the door of a local Catholic Charities agency, 54% of them come with a food insecurity request.
Wow.
So by the time they've come to us, they're pretty stretched thin, they're pretty stressed out.
Wow.
But 54% come to us with a food issue.
Wow.
So it might be a food voucher, it might be a pantry gift, it might be a credit card to a local grocery store that they can buy themselves. It might be a food basket. It might be a mass distribution in a parish. So regardless, they've come and found a way to come see us. The issue then becomes, once we have that first conversation, our case workers tend to try to figure out, okay, you're here for a food insecurity issue. Is this just a one-time deal? Or what else is going on in your life? Many times we find out, it could be a first time. Like, I just need it right now. Something happened. I blew my car tire and I don't have the money, so I had to transfer tire to food. Or what we have found mostly is like, no, there's something else going on. They have a rent issue. They may have a family marriage crisis. They may have a child crisis. They may have a debt crisis. They may have a health crisis. And so what we try to do, to the best of our ability, is engage that client who comes in for food insecurity and say, what else can we do for you? And that's one of the gifts of the Catholic Charities social work movement, is that we're really good at case management, helping a client understand help them understand their problem, and then find other social services or other programs that may help them. So one example would be, in many of our agencies, they come in, like I just said, and let's say, hey, are you eligible for food stamps or SNAP, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program? I don't know if I am. Most states now have a interactive computer program software. So you plug in their name, you plug in all their information, and in many states it'll say yes, they can apply for food stamps, or no, or they'll say, oh, but they can get disability assistance, or they can get unemployment insurance, or they can get something else. So we try to help them access the services that the state or the government provides to help move them out of this stress that they're in, and so to help them work for a long-term goal. So that being said, we'll help a client think through bigger pictures, but we have a whole spectrum of food security programs. One is, okay, you might get help with your rent this time so you can use your dollar for food. Or we have a food pantry, or we have a mass congregational dining, or we have Meals on Wheels for seniors, or we have something else. Or guess what? We also have community gardens.
Oh, interesting.
We also have programs that people that are in community gardens for themselves. Fine, that's cool, that's great. But we have some agencies who are working with people who take those community gardens and are harvesting food for food banks and for others, or actually producing them for flash freezing or preservation to sell in retail.
Oh, wow.
So we have a continuum of things that people can be engaged in depending on where their agency is. Not all agencies do the same thing. That's the beauty of of Catholic Charities in the Church. Subsidiarity is the principle. Local needs, local responses. So I don't know if I answered your question,
Oh, you absolutely
but that's
did.
kind of one way of thinking about it. So yes, food security is one of the. Last year we did a national strategic planning process, and food insecurity is one of the 8 signs of the times that we feel that we have to critically scrutinize in the light of the gospel, as as Vatican II has called us to do and Gaudium et Spes. So food security is one of the big 8 that we're focusing on in the next several years.
Do you mind sharing with us the other 7?
Sure. Okay. Oh, now it's memory time. So one of them is mental health crisis.
Okay.
Another one is immigration and refugees.
Okay.
There's still mass movements of people, regardless. Another one is, oh my goodness, now we have to do this. Disaster response and resiliency. Another one is affordable housing.
Wow.
Another one is loneliness and isolation.
Interesting.
Another one is polarization
Yeah.
in our society and our communities.
Wow.
Another sign of the time that we've identified is distrust of institutions. And what does that mean for the church and for Catholic Charities particularly? And the final one, I think I counted 8. The final one is how do we attract, retain, promote, keep staff people in human services?
Oh, wow.
So our unemployment base. So employment as a secondary issue, but as a primary issue within the social care, within the care sector. We'll call it the care sector, not just Catholic Charities jobs, but the whole thing, from nursing homes to Catholic hospitals to just the whole spectrum. So those are the signs of the times that we identified as a network that we want to focus on for the next couple of years. Signs change, that's the whole point. But right now we think those are the ones we feel called to scrutinize in the light of the gospel on how we should respond.
Wow. Those are lofty and big.
They're big, yeah, and scary,
and important goals.
And there are many ways of attacking it or to addressing it, and that's the whole part of creativity. Like, there's no one answer, but please go out and experiment. Please go out, tell us, share your best practices, help us inform social work.
Right.
And that's part of one of our second goals of our purpose, is to professionalize social work.
How do I'm sure that this resonates, thinking about our listeners who'd be listening to this podcast. Many of them are going to be alumni of the university, or practicing Catholics, perhaps, within local communities. And that gospel imperative applies to all of us, obviously. What are some of the ways that those of us that don't have the privilege to be dedicating our professional lives to service of the poor, but we still have the responsibility? What are some of the ways that we can become involved in supporting initiatives like Catholic Charities and many of the initiatives that you've already spoken about today?
Sure. So a couple things. Let me start with Catholic Charities, and I also want to give a big shout out to St. Vincent de Paul Society. So I'll get to
Oh
that in a
yeah.
moment, because we work very closely with them. I'm a member. I'm a Vincentian myself. So um, the one thing to do, literally, is go to CatholicCharitiesUSA.org.
Okay.
Okay, and from there we have a page seeking help. So don't get confused about that. It goes both ways. You can type your zip code in, and you'll find your local Catholic Charities agency in your zip code.
Mm-hmm.
The point of that is, I'm sure they'd love any type of financial donation. I am sure they'd love any type of engagement to volunteer.
Okay.
So that would be a phenomenal way to get connected locally.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you can always certainly donate to Catholic Charities USA, and all that money goes back to help support our agencies. So you know that your money will be out for that. So that's one way of doing it. I am sure many of our Catholic Charities agencies would love to have people to volunteer their time, their treasure, and their talent. So think about that, as well as how maybe you could even engage your parish to do the same.
Mm-hmm.
And then those who have St. Vincent de Paul societies nearby, St. Vincent de Paul is another great model of people doing wonderful things at the local parish level for the most part. Mm-hmm. So those are ways that you can probably, I'm just using food quite honestly right now as the cut, but anything could happen. Mm-hmm. So please, your time, talent, and treasure are so important to all of us. We truly appreciate that.
And would you mind just sort of talking to us a little bit about expand a little bit on some of those volunteer experiences? So I have had the joy and the pleasure and the privilege to volunteer with Catholic Charities for the Diocese of Arlington, helping teach English to immigrant communities.
Wow.
Right? As well as a couple other things here and there.
English as a second language.
English is a second language. Important,
It's
right?
very
You
important.
mentioned one of the focal areas being immigration, and then helping immigrant communities assimilate in order to be able to thrive, right, is important. But what are some of the other, if someone wanted to donate their time to Catholic Charities in any given diocese? We've talked about food security. We've talked just a couple of other ideas of what the kinds of things people do.
So let me go to the very practical to the more sublime, I guess.
Okay.
So very practically, sometimes Catholic Charities agencies literally need someone to help staff up a food program to help give out food or to help do that. That'd be one way of doing it. Another way would be to organize fundraisers themselves. So I know specifically here in the Diocese of Arlington, Catholic Charities has a big gala every year, which is completely run by volunteers. It's a great event. It's going to be, I think, February 6th coming up in next year. So, that's just one date, one diocese. I know many dioceses have events. In Youngstown, one way that they have volunteers is they call Men Who Cook. And what it is a bunch of guys, I mean, literally, who are non-professional chefs who raise their hand and say, I'm going to cook chili, a lot of chili. And we have this big event, and we pay like $50 a ticket. And these like 20 guys who bought all their food, brought all their food, cooked all their food. And we invite 3 or 4 or 5 highly visible women in the community to be the judge. And then everyone gets to judge on them. That in Youngstown has been that has just been so much fun.
Wow!
Because, and again, it's like a bunch of doctors get together, a bunch of lawyers, and again, it's kind of goofy, like Men Who Cook, and it really is. But then the women chefs, the women judges are hysterical. So it's just been a fun event to raise money. That's another way of just giving your time to kind of share your gifts, but also find a creative way to do it. That's just an example. To the other extreme. I mentioned we had 168 dioceses, which is equivalent to 750 separate corporations. They each have 15 board members on average.
Wow, that's a big social network.
And a term is every 3 years. And a lot of time you can have 3 terms, which is your typical nonprofit structure. So every 9 years, every 3 years, someone is rolling off. Or every year someone's rolling off with more mature institutions. Catholic Charities is always looking for board people.
Okay.
Now it's a different level of different level of volunteering. It's one of due diligence and one of duties of a nonprofit director. But again, they're always looking for people.
Mhm.
So get on a committee. Offer to serve on a committee right now if you're not on the board. That's how people kind of get into the system.
Mhm.
They're always looking for external committee members. And the reason I mention that is because I had 9 separate corporations in Youngstown when I was there. So I was in charge of 150 board members
Wow.
that every year I had a percent leaving and I needed to get a percent back on.
Mhm.
So my job was always trying to find lay people and clergy and religious, but mostly lay people for the most part, to take their baptismal promise
Mhm.
as a Catholic and as a Christian at many points, but mostly as a Catholic, like how can I be part of governance to help Catholic Charities be accountable, to be transparent, and to be effective and efficient. And that's the role of governance. That's just as that is critically important as much as the ones I mentioned. So that's a continuum of volunteering.
Wow. Okay, well, thank you. Can I pivot back to this connection between going back to those steps, 1910 on the steps of
September
McMahon,
25th to be exact.
and this connection between Catholic University of America and Catholic Charities,
Mhm.
Catholic Charities USA, and Catholic Charities locally throughout all of the dioceses around the United States. Have you seen, do you see that relationship still plays out post 1910, right? Beside what, how much collaboration is there between Catholic Charities and Catholic University of America today?
Sure. I think it's back on. So let me put it this way. The dean of the school, the National Catholic School of Social Service, the dean of that school for many years served as a board of director of the Catholic Charities USA board of directors for many years. So we had always had a link. So Sister Ann Patrick at one point was the dean. I remember her clearly because when I was on the board, Sister Ann Patrick was on the board. So I got to become friends with her of happy memory. But so there's had been this kind of organic relationship for decades. And that just kind of differentiated after a while. But that being said, there was a history of that. Second, so moving to the forward, I was very lucky that Dr. Joanne Reagan, the current dean of the school, found out I was an alumni, and we were talking one day by accident, and she's like, "Oh my God, we're looking for board of visitors, and would you be willing to serve in that capacity?" And I said, "Absolutely," because I thought it was a great opportunity. So then she and I, because of that role, she and I began to convene faculty members and practitioners here at Catholic Charities USA to start thinking about possible evaluation and research project for students and faculty.
Oh, wow.
Using projects that we are piloting or testing. So we have several of those going on right now. And so that's been an incredible shape. The local level, I do know that the National School of Social Services works very closely with Catholic Charities of the Archdiocese of Washington and a homeless project and other things, and a lot of placements of their master's students and bachelor students, I believe, especially with Catholic Charities DC and Catholic Charities Arlington in Baltimore, because they're just so close to the school. Makes infinite sense. Now, we're also trying to work with not only the School of Social Services, but the School of Engineering and the Business School at Catholic University of America to help Catholic Charities USA explore the best use of artificial intelligence to help solve poverty.
Oh, wow.
Now, what does that mean? It's a huge question. But how can we use AI to actually look at research questions, look at data, look at projections, and look at, is there any way that we can use that tool to help social work as a profession better understand its role and understand how to use AI properly, but even to look at macro data of all of our institutions in the United States and Catholic Charities to see if there's any trends going on, something that we're missing, to ask it some hard questions and data mining on what's working and what doesn't work, or what's more efficient and what actually gets people out of poverty. Those are the global questions we're still dancing around that right now, thinking how to do that. But it's an exciting moment that we can bring together the School of Engineering, the School of Business, the National Catholic School of Social Service, and Catholic Charities USA in a pontifical university, working with the National Catholic Charities official representatives of the U.S. bishops in domestic poverty. I want to make Pope Leo the 14th proud that we are ahead of the curve on how to help use AI ethically and well to solve the problem of poverty in the world. Who knows? It's a big question. It may never be answered, but it's a way we need to start thinking and be innovative.
And that's the kind of collaboration that the university loves, right? That interdisciplinary collaboration between the School of Social Services, the School of Engineering, the School of Business, but all galvanizing around a problem set. And that problem set that is really deep in the heart of the church, which is problem sets around care for the poor and the marginalized. But that's also deep within the heart of the university,
Absolutely.
which is called to serve the Catholic community and the greater national community of the United States in helping to form leaders that are going to help build a better society for the entire nation, right? So
Exactly.
So talking about Catholic University, Brian, and your time as an undergraduate at the university, I'm curious, is there a particular memory that comes to mind when you think about your years as an undergraduate student at the university that you would want to share that jumps out at you?
Yeah. So one was, of course, daily life on campus was great, and meeting some incredible theologians and lawyers were great, and thinkers. One thing hit me. I remember I told you I became a research assistant for Dr. Joan Barth Urban.
Yeah.
And she was writing a book on Soviet strategy, nuclear strategy. And I was a research assistant for the book. But because of that, she was a Ford Foundation professor. And because of that Ford Foundation grant, she was able to bring a team of global experts to campus.
Oh, wow.
On the European theater, Soviet military, was Soviet at the time. And we had this incredible 5-day symposium of leading experts on Italy, on France, on Spain, on the Soviet Union, on nuclear military strategy, which brought together people from the Pentagon and all these scholars.
Wow.
And the one scholar that came that I'll never forget was a guy named Robert Putnam. Robert Putnam is known, actually, he's a sociologist at Harvard, but he's known for his book on bowling alone. But prior to that, when Robert Putnam was not as well known, he was an expert on Italian political culture and resistance and use of what's going on in communist Russia vis-a-vis the Italian community. And so I got a chance to spend 5 days with Robert Putnam in an earlier life when he actually was an expert on Italy. And so that will never leave my memory, only because just being in the room, sponsored by the Ford Foundation, of all these scholars, and we had some generals and we had some military intelligence people talking about the fate of Soviet military history and the fate of and the practice of Soviet military operations in the context of the European theater. So that, to me, where else could you do that?
Yeah.
At least for me in 1980s was at Catholic University of America.
Yeah.
That was an incredible moment for me.
And still today, it always amazes me because of our location in Washington, D.C. It always amazes me the people that you find that have come across campus, the diplomats, the policymakers, the high-level business leaders. It's amazing what is drawn onto campus, both because of the international scope of the church and that the Catholic Church has this portfolio that expands the entire globe. And then yet us as a university, just like Catholic Charities USA, your headquarters, us as a university seated right in the middle of the city of power of the United States. You get both worlds.
Exactly. Which going back, remember I told you about the president of Colby College, which kind of helped me do due diligence. That was exactly his point back, at least in the 1980s, how powerful Catholic University of America was, and he knew it as a president of a secular institution.
Wow. As a president of a college, of a university of his own.
Yep.
That's impressive. I know I'm running really close to the end of our time together. Can I ask you one final question?
Sure, of course.
What do you most love about your job?
Oh my. What I most love about my job is the ability to visit 168 locations at minimum,
Wow.
and to see the actual work they're doing at Catholic Charities in a local diocese, because every diocese has a different twist, a different response, a different way of thinking, because it's subsidiarity, the principle of subsidiarity at its best. And just going out and seeing the work they're doing and coming back and telling that story, to be an advocate, to be an attorney for the poor here in Washington. So it's connecting the actual work we do in the field to public policies here in Washington. That's my favorite part of the work.
Wow. Well, Brian Corbin, an amazing alum. We are so honored to have you as a member of the family and to that Catholic University of America is your alma mater. Thank you for the work that you do on behalf of the poor and the marginalized across the country. And thank you for the partnership that you have with the university in doing that and in fulfilling that mission. And always love seeing you. And we're always love having you on campus. So
Great. Well, thank you so much, Kristen. Thank you very much. Glad to be here.